All right, this is a test of mounting the GoPro on my bike. And I swear, after all of the work I've done and all the thinking and engineering that's gone into this, you'd think I was landing a rover on Mars. I have no idea why it's this difficult to do, but I have a knack for finding the most difficult ways of doing everything. So what this is right now is the GoPro mounted on the Insta360 invisible selfie stick, which is attached to the handlebars. So as I turn the handlebars, the camera moves. So that maybe is perhaps the negative aspect to this. In every other way, this is the preferred way to do it, because I can position the camera right in front of me like this. I can reach the controls, and it's this is linear mode, which is relatively narrow, but it's far enough away that it's still fairly wide. And I wanted to use linear because it has horizon leveling. Wide, it does not have horizon leveling. So I could go wider, but then there's no horizon leveling. And I've discovered one flaw in my system I didn't think about, is that this Insta360 stick is an extendable pole. It's made up of like 6 or 7 segments that extend, and that means that there's a little bit of play to the left and right. So the pole twists, so the GoPro can go off balance. Like if you have it level, the pole can twist and it goes off level, which is why I want to use horizon leveling. And I never thought about this. I never noticed this twisting motion before. Anyway, I'm gonna ride the bike a little bit and see what this, looks like with the GoPro mounted on the handlebars. So I can already see as I'm riding along that the GoPro is bouncing around a fair bit. It could be that the placement isn't the best either, because it's right in front of me. So it sort of interferes with my view of the road ahead of me a little bit. Of course, this is inside an urban environment where I'll be turning the handlebars a lot more than normal. If I was out in the countryside riding down a road, of course, I would go in a straight line for much longer periods of time. Here in the city, I'll be turning corners a lot more. I'm actually just going to get a Ramley burger for lunch. I might even get 4 Ramley burgers. Still don't have a green light. Yeah, I haven't been out on the bike in this part of the city for a long time, so I'm not feeling that confident about being out here with all these cars and trucks. Whoops, like right there. Yeah, the whole, yeah, it's so complicated. I have the GoPro mounted on so many adapters, and one of the adapters just came loose. Yeah, this whole system is already looking to me more fragile than I'd anticipated, more delicate. Yeah, everything is moving out of place. So, right off the bat, a lot of tweaking is required to make this work. Yeah. I was trying to figure out why it was so relatively easy on a scooter, and that's because when you sit on the scooter, the handlebars are much higher in relation to your body. Whoa, there it goes again. No, this is definitely not workable. It's too many problems. Yeah, this is not the solution I'm looking for. Yeah, the whole selfie stick just kind of went way off angle. Everything down here is loosening up. So I'm trying to center it again, but I can't tighten everything up enough. All right. And if the only way you can make it work is by tightening everything to Hulk Superman levels, then that raises a problem because you're going to break something. Plus, it's going to be very difficult to untighten, and you really need to be able to remove the camera easily from time to time as well. Boy, yeah, this is not working at all. Everything is twisting out of position already, no matter how much I tighten it. Oh. Hello. So that is my Ramley Burger place. Hello. Yeah. 3 beef, 1 chicken. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Well, it would not be wrong to say that that test with the GoPro was a complete disaster. And thinking it through, all the problems I was facing come back to one simple fact, that the GoPro doesn't have a tripod thread mount, doesn't have a 1/4-inch tripod thread. So no matter what I do, the whole thing ends up just not working. I need so many adapters in order to mount it on a tripod thread that it just all falls apart. But anyway, now I've switched over to the 360 camera, and so far, certainly from a mounting point of view, it's a whole lot simpler, just because it does have that tripod thread, and it's a lot easier, I mean a lot lighter than the GoPro. With the GoPro, I have to use the media mod and plus so many adapters that by the time I'm finished with it, it's a lot heavier than a straight GoPro. With the 360 camera, I don't need any adapters or anything like that. I just put the 360 camera on and that's it. I don't need anything else. Of course, the issue with the 360 is that every bit of video that you take then has to be reframed. So you have extra editing steps. It takes a lot longer to work with the video that you shoot. But the other advantage to the 360 is that you can switch back and forth from a forward-facing view to a rearward-facing view. You don't have to turn the camera around or do anything like that. Anyway, very simple test, but that is the end of the test. All right, welcome to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Wednesday, December 14th. And I'm on the bike doing another test. And as every day goes by, it's becoming more and more clear feeling that I may have bitten off way more than I can chew. This whole idea of cycling in Sumatra started off as a very simple idea because I needed to leave Malaysia with my visa expiring. So I had no choice, but I had to leave, had to go somewhere. And it just seemed like a, interesting and reasonable and fun thing to do, to hop on the bike and go to Sumatra. But I didn't count on just how much work was involved in getting the bike ready, getting the camera gear ready, and somehow figuring out a way to adapt my camera gear and my bike so that I can put cameras on the bike. That is turning out to be a major challenge for some reason. One thing I figured out is that all my systems, when I did this on the scooter, they worked because the geometry of a scooter is quite different from a bicycle. When you're sitting on the scooter, your butt is quite low and the handlebars are much higher. So it's easier to mount the camera at eye level. On a bicycle, the seat is level with the handlebars. And anytime you try to get a camera at eye level, you end up needing a very long pole. And the longer the pole, the higher and higher it gets. Of course, it becomes very wobbly and unstable, and you need a very strong mounting system. And I've been trying to figure that out. And I was focusing all my efforts on mounting things on the handlebars. And the last couple of days, I thought I came up with a system, but then I went out for a real world test and the whole system fell apart. It just doesn't work. And the major problem is that when you put a camera on the handlebars, every time you turn the handlebars, the camera turns with them. So I've also been trying to work out a way to mount the camera on the frame of the bike. And then if the camera is on the frame of the bike, then it doesn't move with the handlebars. You turn the handlebars to go around a corner or something, but the camera stays more or less in the same position because it's attached to the frame. And I was trying to work out a dual system where I could switch back and forth between mounting on the handlebars and mounting on the frame depending on what my needs were that day. But I could not figure anything out. And the main problem was the handlebar bag. Because I have the handlebar bag mounted, and the handlebar bag interfered with all of my mounting systems that were attached to the frame. So I kept trying and trying and trying to work out a solution to that problem. I haven't been able to find one. And then last night, I thought, well, I don't think I have a choice. I have to choose between mounting the cameras and having a handlebar bag. So I thought, okay. I woke up this morning and the very first thing I did was take the handlebar bag off the bike and then try to mount the 360 camera to the frame. And that's what I'm testing right now. So I have the 360 camera on the frame of the bike. So now in theory, the video should be more pleasing. It won't be as wobbly. The camera won't be waving through the air when I turn the handlebars, in theory. Anyway, that's what I'm testing. but the selfie stick for the 360 camera is very thin and very wobbly. It's not very rigid. So I'm trying to see if this works or not. Because if you're riding a bike all day, you can't really be treating it like it's made out of glass. You have to be able to go over rough bits of road. You have to be able to bounce up and down and not worry about the camera. And what I have right now, maybe the camera isn't high enough. I'm going to adjust it to a higher position. Okay. Wow. Okay, there the camera is higher. Feels like it's a nicer spot. I was also trying to come up with a system where I could use the same mount for the 360 camera and the GoPro, so that I could just use the same mounting system but just switch back and forth between the two cameras. But that added so many variables, it just didn't work at all. So I pretty much have to have separate mounting systems depending on which camera I'm using. But I'm riding along a pretty smooth pavement right now, and it feels reasonable. I don't see the camera doing too many crazy things. Wow. This is a busy, busy road. Rush hour here in Kuala Lumpur. Now, like in this situation, I've turned my handlebars way over to the right. Oh, there's so many issues. I discovered early on that when I mounted the selfie stick to the frame and I brought it too close to the handlebars, then when I turned my handlebars, my brake levers would hit the pole. I know this is all very difficult to grasp when you're not physically doing it yourself, but you have to trust me that it's very, very complicated. There are just so many variables. Anyway, I'm going to try and whoa, I screwed up trying to cross that intersection. Yeah, these short bike rides that I've been going on in KL, testing my camera gear and my bike, have made me more happy that Matthew offered to drive me to Port Dickson. Which means I don't have to try to ride a bike out of Kuala Lumpur. So I think from here all the way to Port Dickson just about, or all the way to Klang, all you're dealing with are highways, busy freeways and expressways. Yeah, I don't know. This is just a very short ride. inside a city on pavement, and my 360 camera just feels like it's in a very precarious position. May not be something that you can do all the time. Well, I'll be very interested to see what this video looks like. Well, that was kind of reasonable. I have a system set up there where I can put the selfie stick into a clamp at the bottom and a clamp along the pole itself, and then it's relatively easy to remove and then just walk around with it. But yeah, anyway, I'm popping into McDonald's for a snack. Let's see how this works. I've lost track of where I am in this behind the scenes offering because I've been doing a bunch of video testing of cameras on my bicycle, different mounting systems, and I don't know at this point which chunks of those videos I'll be including in this behind the scenes video and which I won't be. So I've sort of lost in the timeline of my life, and as it relates to the timeline of these videos and my preparations for eventually going to Sumatra. But anyway, this morning I did another test, and this one involved trying to mount the 360 camera on the frame of the bicycle rather than the handlebars, because it was the handlebars that were causing all the problems, because it's difficult to mount on my bike's handlebars. But at the same time, once you put a camera on a long selfie stick attached to the handlebars, the camera waves around in the air, just moves all over the place while you're steering the bicycle, obviously. It's sort of like putting a camera on the steering wheel of your car. It's a very convenient spot. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? But as you're driving the car, turning the steering wheel, your camera is, waving all over the place. So of course you wouldn't put a camera on the steering wheel of your car. You would mount it to the windshield of your car or the hood of your car, someplace that is stable. And I guess the same theory applies to a bicycle. So that was my plan, and I'd been having trouble doing that because just the way my bike geometry is laid out and the way the selfie stick and the camera works, when I put the selfie stick, tried to attach it to the frame, it conflicted with the handlebar bag. It was in the way, and no matter what I did, no matter how I tried to rig things up, there was no way I could get beyond that problem. One of them had to go, and I really didn't want to get rid of the handlebar bag. It's a very convenient thing when you're bike touring, in particular, that handlebar bag. It's where do you put all the small items you need all day long, In my case, my smartphone and sunglasses, and you can put a wallet in there, put money in there, and it's right there in front of you the entire time. And if you don't have a handlebar bag, where do you put all this stuff? Anyway, it just becomes a big problem. But I decided to do a little experiment, and I took the handlebar bag off, mounted the selfie stick for the 360 camera, and then I went for a ride to McDonald's for breakfast. And then while I was there having breakfast, I reviewed the video on my camera, and it was really disappointing because it was very jittery and shaky, particularly the background. It was just going up and down with every bump of the bicycle as it was going over the bumpy road, and didn't look good at all. And I thought, well, I don't know what's going on here, but that looks terrible. And I started to think that, I don't know, maybe the motion of a bicycle interferes with the type of digital stabilization you get with the 360 camera. I don't know, it just wasn't working. Like the stabilization wasn't there, and I couldn't figure out why not. And I was pretty annoyed by that, and I was very frustrated and very stressed out as I sat there at McDonald's, because it was one more failed experiment trying to figure out a way to mount these cameras. And yeah, I wasn't happy. So I rode back to my hotel in a very foul mood. But then something kind of magical happened. Based on my experience with 360 cameras, this is something I should have been able to figure out on my own without having to stumble across it. But it turns out that 360 cameras operate a little bit differently, say, from a GoPro. Mask. I went back into the MRT system again, and like I said before, it's the one place where you still need to wear a mask. And because of that, I keep forgetting. I just come from the outside world, whatever shop I was just in, without a mask, and then yeah, I forget to put one on here. Anyway, time to do that. Yeah, with a GoPro, it uses digital stabilization, the same as a 360 camera, but it is applied while you're shooting the video. The camera adds it to the information that's part of the video itself. But a 360 camera works differently. The camera doesn't apply the stabilization as you shoot the video. The stabilization doesn't appear until you import the video files into the software. So it's the software in your phone or on your laptop or tablet, the Insta360 app or program, that applies the stabilization. So even though all the video looked terrible when I was reviewing it on the camera at McDonald's, I brought it back and I thought, well, let's just load it into the app and see what happens. And then in the app, suddenly the stabilization took effect and the video looked acceptable. I don't know yet whether I would call it great or anything like that, but at least it was acceptable. So that was a rare moment of triumph for me. Felt like I took a small step forward as opposed to the constant momentous steps backwards, which seems to be how everything goes these days. And my plans are continuing as planned for going to Sumatra. I have a ticket booked on this ferry going from Port Dickson to Dumai, and that is on Saturday, December 17th. My visa expires, I guess my visa expires on December 18th, or my Malaysian social visit pass, so I'm getting out of the country one day early. Cutting it kind of close, but that's just the way these things turned out. And Matthew Na, Planet Doug subscriber and friend here in Kuala Lumpur, offered to drive me to Port Dickson, me and my bicycle and my trailer. So that's what we're doing on Friday morning. He's going to come pick me up. We're meeting actually at a parking lot because he can't really park his SUV outside of my hotel. It's just it's too crowded, too much traffic. So he's going to find a parking area and I'll go there, ride my bike there, and then we'll dismantle it, load it up in the back of his SUV and ride in his SUV to Port Dixon. And that's going to be very, very nice because I couldn't find a route to get to Port Dixon that didn't follow the major expressways and highways. So yeah, it was not going to be a very fun ride on the bike. And this saves me a lot of time. And it turns out I need that time as well because my Rode Wireless Go 2 microphone was still somewhere out there being, in between the camera store and the distributor because it was defective, and I returned it and they were going to get me a new one, but it wasn't clear when that new one was going to show up. And that's what I'm doing right now, by the way. I'm actually out in the MRT system because I'm heading to Bukit Bintang, and then I'm going to walk from there to Berjaya Times Square. And that's where Altec Camera is located because I contacted them this morning and I asked them, is there any news on my microphone? Because I'm leaving the country. I'm leaving the country in like 2 days. I'm leaving Kuala Lumpur in 2 days anyway, leaving the country in 3. So, if I don't get this microphone before I leave, what can I do? So I sent them a message this morning, and they contacted the distributor, and I guess goosed them a little bit. And lo and behold, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and my microphone has showed up. Whether it's my old one that has been repaired, or my original one that's been repaired, or it's a brand new replacement unit, I don't know yet. So I'm heading to Altec, and I'm going to find that out. So that's why I'm out here. But I've been waiting for this microphone. My original plan was to leave on Sunday, last Sunday. And obviously that didn't happen because I'm still here. And it turns out I needed these extra days just to get everything done. So I also booked a room for one night in Port Dixon. That was kind of an interesting adventure. It's been a while since I've done that. And I went online, I went onto Agoda and Booking.com and Google Maps, just looking for hotels, trying to find something that's in my low budget price range and something that might be suitable for a guy like me with a bicycle. And the pickings were slim. That I'll tell you for sure. Pickings were very slim. The low budget line of hotels in Malaysia don't seem to be very good value. I think you can get very good value if you jump up to, 3-4 star hotels. I think you get a lot for your money at that price point. But at the low end, you get very, very little for the money that you spend. So I couldn't really find anything, mainly because all the rooms, according to the reviews and everything I saw, were extremely small, like tiny rooms. And I'm normally okay with a tiny room, but once you throw my bicycle and touring gear into the mix, I need a bit more space. So it's nice to have more space. And there weren't very many in my low budget price range. And I finally found one, and I booked a room there, and I'll talk about that once I arrive at Bukit Bintang, because my train is here. I'm at Bukit Bintang station now. This big escalator I'm on has been out of service for a long time. So I've been walking up these long stairs, but it's back in service now. So I get to ride in splendor. So the very first hotel I was looking at, which actually Matthew tracked down for me online, probably, like the lowest price hotel in Port Dixon was a thing called Marvel Suite Homestay. And for Malaysia, a budget hotel is still, for me, quite expensive. This one, I think it was like 70 ringgit a night, 60 ringgit if you can get a good deal on Agoda. And then when you dive into the details, you get very little for your 60 ringgit. So as I said, Malaysia, I don't think is a very good value country for a low budget accommodation. It's hard to find a place that suits a low budget and is kind of okay, And all the other low budget places that I saw were sort of in the same price range. So there was not a lot to choose from, but I eventually chose against Marvel because according to all the reviews, the rooms are very, very small, like even smaller than you would imagine they are. Plus, it has a self-check-in system with a 3 p.m. check-in time. And that's just so late in the afternoon to check in at 3 p.m. I don't like waiting that long, and I find it a little bit insulting as well. It's almost like hotels are making the window for guests smaller and smaller, sort of like you can't check in until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you have to check out at 9 o'clock the next morning, sort of thing. It just becomes a tighter and tighter window, and you get less and less for your money, you know? But all those circumstances, all those details, I thought, nah, Marvel is not the place for me. And I kept looking around, and almost everywhere that I checked had very, very poor reviews. And I eventually settled on something called the PD Seafront, I think. Let me double check the name. Yeah, the place I booked is called the PD Seafront Hotel. And it seems like more my kind of place. The reviews are kind of funny, actually. I'm looking forward to seeing the place for myself. You know, you have to take reviews, negative reviews, with a grain of salt, because I think if people have an okay experience anywhere, doing anything, they don't really feel like leaving a review. You know, they don't have the energy for it. But if someone has a negative experience, they like to vent. So I think reviews, posted reviews, tend to be more negative than, you know, normal. Like someone who had a bad experience, I'm saying, is more likely to leave a review than someone who has had a good experience. So even if you see a whole bunch of negative reviews, it doesn't automatically reflect reality, because all the people who had good experiences probably didn't leave a review. But anyway, the reviews are kind of funny. A lot of them talked about creatures in the rooms. I'm not quite sure what kind of creatures to expect, because people said, oh, the bathroom was full of worms. I don't know what worms could be, or, you know, what the worms were doing, you know, in the bathroom, how they got in there. But I guess, yeah, it's full of creepy crawlies, these rooms. And people talked about the bathrooms being very dirty when they moved into their room. But a lot of those negative things have a lot to do with expectations as well. If I'm staying at a low-budget hotel, you know, my expectations are lowered in terms of what the conditions are going to be like. And if the bathroom is a little bit old and dirty and worn, well, that's what I was expecting. But if someone was expecting something that was really nice and modern and clean, then they would be disappointed. Anyway, this hotel is older, which is something I like about it. These older hotels tend to be a bit more spacious. The rooms are larger as a rule, and then the lobby area is larger. Just the hotel grounds would be larger. Plus, the Seafront Hotel is located right on the seafront, about 2.5 kilometers from downtown Port Dixon, which makes it 2.5 kilometers away from the port where I get my boat. But that isn't an issue for me, because I'll have a bicycle. So it doesn't matter to me that I'm 2.5 kilometers outside of town. I can stay there, and I can still hop on my bike and ride into town. And then I just ride to the port in the morning to get my boat anyway. Oh, that's a funny thing too. When I come out of the MRT system, I forget that I can remove the mask. I just don't have enough brain cells left to keep up with the world anymore. So, and the seafront has normal hotel staff. I mean, there's a front desk with staff. So Matthew and I will probably show up a little bit earlier. You know, we're going to show up before lunch, go to the ferry dock. I can pay for my ticket, get my ticket, and then go from there to the hotel. So maybe, you know, I think their check-in time is 2 o'clock. But since it's not a machine doing the check-in, you know, maybe they'll let me check in early. Or if not, I can just drop off my gear. And then Matthew and I are going to go have lunch somewhere. So that is the plan. And as it stands now, I don't have a place to stay in Dumai. I haven't booked anything. I've been so busy with setting up my bike and my camera gear that I really haven't had a chance to even think about Sumatra, which is kind of a bad thing. You're going somewhere on a trip, you kind of want to know about the place you're going, and I just haven't had the time. So I haven't really done a deep dive into the town of Dumai, where I'm going to stay, how long I'll stay there, and then when I'll get on the road to ride my bike to Bukit Bintang. All that planning, I guess, will happen once I arrive there, because I'm not going to have time to think about it until I get there. But yeah, things are happening. I'm here at Berjaya Times Square. And I just have to walk across this pedestrian bridge to go into the mall, head up to the 6th floor, and then that should be the last major piece in the puzzle. If I can get my microphone, then I'll be ready to go. Yeah, I don't know why this road is so popular with traffic. I don't know where it goes exactly, but it seems to be very convenient for drivers. They use it to get from this road to wherever the road goes to. I have no idea where they're going. Very busy area. Just arriving on the 6th floor of Berjaya Times Square. This is where all the camera stores are. There's one SC camera. And right up here is, I don't know how to say the name, Ace camera, ACCE. He deals in a lot of used camera equipment. All my camera adventures in KL this time all started with this store, though I never managed to get a deal done here. And then All Tech is off in that direction in the corner. And this mall is well known for the amusement park, of course, that's here. I've never gone into here or ridden on any of the rides or done anything like that. But you can see it from up here on this floor. You get a look down on it. You know, roller coasters. Pretty major roller coaster, though I've never seen the roller coaster running. I don't know if it's operational or if it's ever been operational, like for a long time. As I said, I've never seen a train on it. There you are. All right, let's head into All Tech camera and see what is waiting for me there. Good news, I am the proud owner of a Rode Wireless Go 2 microphone once more. As it turns out, my original Rode, where I was having the receiver had problems with the power button, they sent it back to the distributor, but it hasn't been dealt with by them yet, and they didn't send a replacement unit yet. But All Tech knows that I'm leaving the country in like tomorrow is kind of my last. Tomorrow is my last day in Kuala Lumpur, and so they were very helpful. And they says, well, we don't have the replacement unit from the supplier yet, but we'll give you one off the shelf here. So they opened up a brand new unit for me, and we powered it up in the shop. You know, we charged everything up and turned them all on and checked all the buttons just to make sure that everything was in working order. And I have it here in my knapsack, nice and safe. So that is a relief. So 2 major pieces of good news today. Got the Rode Wireless Go microphone again, and I figured out, I think, a way to mount the 360 camera on my bike, on the bicycle frame, and it seems to work. the rig that I've come up with. At least I can start off with that and then see how it goes from there. Going down the escalators. While I was at Alltech getting the microphone all set up and testing it, I heard what I think was a tremendous amount. Oh, escalator. I heard what I thought was a tremendous amount of rain coming down. Big thunderstorm outside. Not positive about it, but I think it was raining pretty heavily. Hopefully the rain has ended by now. Seems that my ears deceived me. It has not been raining out here, and it's not raining now, which is nice. This is where I am. Rush hour still ongoing. And while I was sitting at Alltech waiting for the units to charge up so we could test them, I also did a little bit of Google Maps searching for the route between Dumai and Bukittinggi, where I want to go. And I was looking for immigration offices because chances are I'll want to extend my 30-day tourist visa one time. You can only extend it one time, that's the maximum. And the last time I was there, it was a little bit complicated, requiring you to start the process at an immigration office, and then you have to return quite a few days later into the weeks, like 10 days or something like that, maybe up to 2 weeks, that they process it, and then you finally get your extension. So it's a little bit weird. You end up having to base yourself near an immigration office, or at least you have to return to that immigration office. So if you're not careful, it can really interfere with your travel plans, because you intend to go somewhere, but then you find out you can't go anywhere because you're trapped in the town near the immigration office until you get your stamp. But anyway, at least they have a lot of immigration offices scattered around, and you have to be careful about which one you depend on, because there are different classes, like a class 1, class 2, class 3, and depending on the class, they offer different services, you know, class 1 being the most advanced, class 3 the least, you know. But as far as I can remember, I could go to either a class 1 or a class 2. I'm not sure about a class 3. So I was looking for various class 1 and 2 immigration offices, and there are quite a few scattered around. One in Padang, for example, which is near, in the Bukittinggi area. So depending how the days work out, I could ride to the Bukittinggi area, get into Padang, start the process. It's a funny thing, as soon as you land in a country, like almost the same day that you land there, you have to start thinking about your visa, when it expires and how you're going to extend it, or how you're going to leave the country. It's like, yeah, the clock starts ticking from the very minute that you land. Just, with 30-day visas, that's how it goes. Be nice, 90-day visas are a lot nicer, but most countries don't offer those anymore. They are a relic of the past, a much happier past. And speaking of logistics and complications, I finished watching the first video in Paddy Doyle's Laos series. And that was kind of interesting for me, because he talked a little bit about some of the logistical problems he encountered. It was actually weeks before that he tried the first time to bring his brand new scooter across the border from Thailand into Laos, and they wouldn't let him go across. They had instituted a rule that anything under, I forget the engine size, like a 250cc scooter or motorcycle, you're not allowed to take them into the country. I guess they had a problem with people from Thailand bringing scooters in over the border and then selling them in Laos for making a profit that way, and became a big enough problem that they basically banned all scooters with and motorcycles with a small engine size. But they also told him, I think, that if he went to a different border crossing, he could do it in some fashion. So he had to go to the main border crossing that led to the capital city, Vientiane. So this whole video, the first one in his Laos series, starts with him crossing the border at Vientiane. And the only way he could do it was through an agent. So technically, he wasn't allowed to bring his scooter into Laos. But there was a workaround that if he hired a local agent to do it, they could somehow come up with the paperwork. And I guess technically it's the agent that's importing the bike into the country, not him. And he didn't give all of the details, but from the few details that he did give, and then from the stories he told about actually crossing the border, it was a real hassle. I mean, I think by the time he finally linked up with the agent's partner in Laos, who was waiting for him there, it took him a long time to track this person down. A lot of misinformation, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of delays and problems, and he said in the video, it was very expensive at the same time to hire this agent to do all this for him. And I got the impression that with all of that, 2 attempts to get across the border, and now the agent, and now all the extra expense and all the hassle, by the time it was all done, it's daunting enough that you would probably just not bother doing it. Like a normal person would just quit and say, forget it. This is just, like, what's the point? If you have to work this hard to get into this country, just skip it, just don't even bother, just stay home. But of course, Patty had invested a great deal of time and energy and money, and it's his career. He's making these travel videos for YouTube, and he'd been talking about it for a long time, setting it up, his trip through Laos, and he'd invested so much time and effort in setting the trip up. He had to follow through and get it done. So he stuck with it and finally got across the border. But I can only imagine. I mean, he just hinted at how difficult it was, and I know that if I went through that, I would be telling stories about it for the next 5 years. It would just, I can only imagine. And while he was there at the border getting all this organized, staying at his hotel, he met up with a whole bunch of other people, foreigners that were also, and Thai people, I guess, maybe, but they were all hoping to get into Laos. They'd all planned these big motorcycle journeys, big, adventures, and they all got to the border expecting to just go through, and then they told them, no, you can't bring your motorcycles into Laos. So everybody was faced with this problem. My train is here. I haven't watched all of his videos from Laos, just little bits and pieces of, I think, 3 videos. The first, the second, and then the most recent one. And the most recent one was the one I've already talked about, I think, where he had so many breakdowns. He, like the strap on his scooter broke or came loose, and he ended up breaking his tripod or dragging it along the road behind him. And the strap got caught up in the chain and wheels of his scooter, and he couldn't get it out, he couldn't get it free. And then while all that was going on, his wallet fell out of his pocket, and he lost his bank card and some money. So sort of like I'm watching these videos, and it's sort of like Patty and I have switched lives or something. Everything he was talking about, everything that was happening to him felt like these would be things that would be happening to me. And that trend continued with the second video, because he plotted a route out of Vientiane, where he'd spent a couple of days, and he booked a hotel in a very beautiful district with all the limestone hills. And his idea was to hop on this highway on his scooter, and it was the fastest, most direct route to get out of the city where he wanted to go. And then he went off on his scooter, and then he got to like a toll gate for this highway system, and they wouldn't let him on. Like motorcycles, scooters were not allowed on that highway. So they turned him back, and that was how his day began. So it took him a lot longer, like hours and hours longer, to get to the area where he wanted to go to. And then when he got there, he couldn't find the hotel. He booked it online, and yet even with his online booking, he didn't really know what the name of the place was. He didn't know what it was called. For whatever reason, the map didn't show him where it was, or it was inaccurate, I'm not sure. And then he was talking with all the local people, like people that at other hotels, showing him the photographs of this place where he'd booked a room, and asking them, like, do you recognize this place? Like, what is this hotel? Do you know where it is? And nobody could help him out. And he eventually got out his drone, and he sent his drone up in the air and flew the drone up and down the river, just looking for a hotel that matched what he saw in the pictures online. So that was, again, pretty crazy. Again, it sounds like something that I would end up doing, where he has to, you have to use a drone to find your hotel. So, yeah, his journey in Laos didn't seem to have gotten off to a very good start. A lot of problems, a lot of complications. I haven't been watching very many videos like that, like from Itchy Boots or Patty Doyle or any other travel vlogger. I just haven't had the time to do it. But as I said, I watched a couple of them from Patty, and I always pay special attention to how the videos are shot as well. I always want to know what kind of cameras they're using, and then again, how they shoot the videos themselves. And I noticed quite a few interesting things, about Patty's videos, for example. These days, he's shooting less and less and less real-time video, like video that is shot during the experience itself. Most of his video now seems to be more like narrating the story afterwards and then peppering in footage. He relies very heavily on drone footage because he's looking for beautiful scenery everywhere he goes. In Vietnam and in Laos now, all these places, in Thailand, he deliberately went to the places where he knew flying the drone would result in really beautiful scenery, mountains and rivers and rice fields, all that sort of thing. So he incorporates a lot of that video of the drone footage in his video, and then he narrates a voiceover afterwards, talking about what he did that day. And I also noticed when he was in Vientiane, he used, I don't know if you'd call it stock footage, but he was using footage from like documentaries, like not video that he shot himself, but video from, history stories from Laos, things like that, documentaries. And I assume he had to get, the rights to these video clips to include them in his video. Yeah, I'm just saying I noticed that trend in his videos, that it wasn't so much filming his travel day as, in a way, a little bit like my behind-the-scenes videos, where when the day is over, he'll tell the story of the day, but then pepper in all this, like drone footage and other bits of video that he shot. I just stopped off at my neighborhood Ramly Burger outlet for another Ramly Burger dinner. I've had a lot of Ramly Burger dinners lately. Just developed a taste for them. And the guy who makes them there is so good at it. He's just a friendly, very nice guy. It's just an enjoyable experience going there. And that's 50% of the reason I go anywhere. If I like the people at a coffee shop or a restaurant, I'll go back all the time. Food is often secondary to the people. Yeah, with videos like that, like with Patty Doyle's video, I noticed the new style he's been using a lot of, and I end up wondering whether that's a deliberate choice on his part or whether it just happens, it's like forced on him because of circumstances and just the physical nature of his day. So but after I watch the video, I end up with the feeling that he set off in the day with a plan of where he's going to fly the drone. So he has all these spots in mind. He's going to stop there, fly the drone. So most of his mind is concentrating on capturing this beautiful footage along the way. And I think when you think like that, it just takes up so much of your time and your energy. You don't document the rest of your day. You just it takes all of your energy and all of your time to go out looking for this video that you want, and that's what you get during the day. And then at the end of the day or midday, then he would just stop, look at the camera, and tell the story of the day. Whoa. Ooh. The sidewalk was blocked by this truck, so I walked out into the street there for a minute. I thought I could scoot around, and these two giant buses were going to run me down. Back in my neighborhood, busy one. And I can relate to that easily because, like in my situation, simply keeping the technology working can be a full-time job. Like simply running the cameras, just being a cameraman, can take pretty much all of your time. And if that's the case, then you don't have the time to do anything else. All of your time gets poured into operating the cameras. Anyway, well, I am back at the Kojoy. Got my Ramly burgers in my knapsack, and going to enjoy a relaxing Ramly burger meal inside my room. 2 nights left at the Kojoy, tonight and tomorrow night, and then Friday. Heading to Port Dixon. Hardly seems real yet, to be honest, but that's what's going to happen. So that's it for behind the scenes, shutting down, and see you in the next video.